We're recording now. I guess, Grandma, you just want to tell us your full name and when you were born and...
Yeah, so I was born in 1928, November the 8th, 1928, at it was east of Ballinger, close to Telfa, Texas. I was born in a home where they lived on a ranch east of Ballinger. And let's see.
What was your full name when you were born? And
I was baptized as Mary Elvera Werner, Werner. And in later years, I had a teacher that in the 7th grade that I guess everybody had a hard time pronouncing my name right, but anyway, she didn't like it that I spelled it with an I, because I was called Elvera, and she made me change it, Elvera, and it's been that way on my Social Security. And it's not a good idea to name your child one name and to call it by a second name, because it makes a lot of difference on your Social Security and doctor's offices and everything else, all the stuff you have to record. But anyway, we lived there for a few years, and my parents moved to Miles, Texas, and rented a farm.
what part of Texas is that?
South of San Angelo. East of San Angelo. Between San Angelo and Ballinger. And we lived on a farm. And
Well, before we get into your life growing up, Grandpa, what was your birth date and your birth name, baptism name?
Well, actually, back there when I was born in the home, and of course it was the home that burned down where I lived all my life till we got married, and other than going to the army. And my full name is Joseph Auto Hoelscher, and of course everybody calls me Joe, but our legally Elvera's first name is Mary, so we're actually Mary and Joseph on our tax papers. That's about the only place. And I was born October 25th, 1927. And I was, what was it? I was the 5th child my mother and daddy had, and they had 9 children from my mother, and 2 children, children, Reynolds and Sarah, from the dad's first wife. So we were 11. Sarah and Reynolds were just part of the family, just like the mother treated them like her own children.
What were your parents, or your grandparents' names and your parents' names?
Well, Ed and Josephine Hoelscher, and my great-grandparents was Frank and what was them? Well, my dad was from his first wife, and she was, her last name was Miller, and I don't remember what her name was. So,
Were you guys pretty close as a family? Like with your cousins and aunts and uncles and...
Well, there was talk about the Hirts.
well,
Your mother's
mother's
was from the Hirt.
name was Hirt, Hirt. And her mother and dad, in 1919, I think, they had a bad flu epidemic in the country, and I think that's where Dad's first wife, and that's where Mr. and Mrs. Hirt, on Mother's side. So the mother and Uncle Frank, they were actually orphaned, and they lived with a cousin for a little bit, and Frank was just very young, and so Grandma Walters took care of them after that, and there was Elvera's mother and my mother. Mother was working for a banker in Rowena, Swanka.
Yeah, something like that.
And Dad married Mother, and then Elvera's mother worked for the same people, and Elvera's dad married her. And both of them, Mother came from Rockdale, and your mother Elvera's mother came from
Moulton,
Texas, down in East Texas, both of them.
So is it a pretty small town?
Rowena.
Now they aren't real small, but they aren't very big either. They're kind of medium-sized towns. And
What was it like growing up there?
well, we bought this. Dad inherited a farm from Grandpa and Grandma, or from Grandpa rather. And then we bought, Dad and Mother bought another farm right west, and they paid $70 an acre, and the Depression hit, and that land went down in price, maybe half what they paid for it, and so Mother and us children, her children, we would hoe cotton and do a lot of work on the place, and but in my case, Isidore, my older brother, was 7 years older than I, so he would drive the tractor, and Dad, he had the doctor told him he'd have a hearing problem if he drove a tractor because it was too loud, he said, and so Dad farmed with a team, 4 horses, and then I had an old mule and a horse. Actually, that was the buggy horse where I went to school, and pulled the buggy that I went to school with the first about 3 years. And then after that, we got a Model A Ford and run it for a long time. But Dad we planted 2 rows of cotton, 1 row of the blank row, and I would take out the blank row with that old team. And they were so old they wouldn't go too fast. Dad's team, they were moving right along. He had a really good team.
And how old were you at the time when you were doing all that?
I think because of that 7-year spread in there that I started about taking out those micros about 8 years old, and I was too little to raise the plow out the ground. So when I went home, I had to go across the Cleacher Road. I just left the plow and then it just going across that road, those rocks would just kind of bounce across the road and then went on down that hard turn road. Sweep would just slide on top. So that's the way, but I considered myself lucky because I was sitting on that plow and like the girls, they were out there hoeing with Mother, and Andrew was the next one, and he was hoeing some too. Everybody that was big enough was hoeing cotton besides Isidore and I. And of course Reynold and Sarah were married already by that time.
One big team of farmers.
So anyway, it wasn't long I was driving